Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share that story of connection to that which is bigger than us, to the great mystery beyond the veil, the synchronistic breadcrumbs that we follow into the next big reveal. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love these conversations, and I tend to find other people who also like them so that we can be delighted all together. So we were just talking before we got on the show. My new friend, Georgia Ellis, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to getting into some wonderful conversations with you.
We were just talking right before we got on, Georgia. We were talking about how privileged we feel. Like, I feel privileged to be able to have conversations and to find new friends that like these kinds of conversations. And then not only be able to find new friends that like these conversations, but then share the conversation, because why not? You know, why not? We're having it.
Exactly. We just don't know what's going to pop up, and there could be some wisdom and some gems that could, help inspire or help somebody change their life in some small or large way. So let's get into it, hey?
Yeah, let's get into it. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Georgia. So Georgia is had 22 years in the corporate world. Familiar? Anybody out there? Living by the conventional rules, and now is a free agent who takes delight in bending the rules and teaching people how to take how their minds and bodies, when fully understood, can help create incredible shifts in your life. And she's gone down many, many, many rabbit holes of exploration, including human potential, philosophy, spirituality, neuroscience, ancient wisdom, quantum theory, epigenetics, neurobiology, and flow, and attempting to join the dots on what it really means to excel at being human. And so you can see why I'm so excited about the potential of this conversation. Who knows? But she founded Blue Chip Minds, which is dedicated to helping people become better humans, and, probably just deciding what that even means. So she has a podcast, Ellis and Wonderland podcast, which I've been on, and I'll put a link in the show notes to that. And so let's go down some rabbit holes, Georgia. Let's just go down rabbit
Let's
holes.
do it. Let's do
So
it. Let's just see what's going to roll and show up.
so interesting. I think I'm going to let you lead on the rabbit hole you want to go down right now. But I mean, I know that you started going down these rabbit holes. You have got to have been going down these rabbit holes because of the constriction of a life in corporate and all that entails. But say
Yeah.
more.
Actually, I think the rabbit hole started before then. I can remember. So I was brought up in a religious household. So my parents we went to the local Baptist church. Now the Baptist church here in Australia is a little bit different to what you may experience in America. So, and there were a lot of rules and restrictions that were imposed on me. And I, as a young person, obviously went on to those rules. And these rules were parenting rules and part of the rules that I think how my parents would have interpreted the rules of the teachings that they were hearing at the church. So there was rules such as, we couldn't drink, no sex before marriage. It was no dancing and all this really weird stuff, right? So it was almost like we were forbidden to enjoy life. And deep within me, it just did not resonate and feel right. And I don't even like using the word right. It just didn't feel like this is my purpose and this is why we're here. And I remember at the age of 17, I just refused to stop going to church anymore. And part of that was the teachings just did not make sense to me in life. So the exploring rabbit holes probably started there. And it took me, I'd say, another 10 years before I started delving into more of the topics that you were talking about. So at 17, I'm going, something's not right. And I think as teenagers, we tend to start questioning anyway. And we start to rebel a little bit because we're finding our own independence, we're finding our identity, and we're establishing our identity. And I felt like I was just being restricted from having fun and enjoying life. I didn't go off the rails or do anything stupid, but that, I think, was where the curiosity started, as in what else is out there. And, some of the things that were were sort of, the restrictions were, you know, we had to marry within our, we didn't have to, we're encouraged to stay within our own race if we were to have a relationship, stay within our own religion if we were to have a relationship as well. So both of my sisters met their husbands in the church and are married to them, still married to them. Georgia met her first husband in a pub, and he was Catholic. And, you know, that probably wasn't the best thing for the family. The marriage lasted 7 years or so, but that's a whole different story. But there was things like that, just bending the rules of what was expected. But I didn't know at that time that there was a lot of subconscious programming that was ruling that, and there was a lot of ancestral DNA floating through me that was making me do some of the things that I did. And I had no idea of any of that at that stage, but I was just really wanting to design my life the way that I felt it was right for me. Yeah, so I think that answers your question. That's sort of where it started, right back there.
Yeah, that's so intriguing. I actually, I've been thinking a lot about the stages of human development, human consciousness development. And I follow an astrologer called Kai Pacha, and he had this broadcast recently where he showed like a triangle, you know, representation of the human development process and at a soul level. And the first like the bottom half are rule followers. So we follow the systems, we follow the rules. There's safety in following the rules and the systems and fitting in and conforming and blending in and all of this, right? So there's like half of the population is totally in that space. And then on the next part is the intellectuals. So the next part is the ones that say, screw that, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to explore. I'm going to question everything. I'm going to go my own direction, which is a lot like teenagers, right? Like it's this, no, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense. It's like, and it's like exploring the boundaries of like, where are the lines? Like where, you know, can I get out of these boxes and can I find beyond that? And then the very top of the pyramid is like this, you know, the spiritual. The spiritual is above that,
Mm.
which is this like realization of unity consciousness. And some of us are like transitioning from the intellectual into the true spiritual, you know? So we're on that cusp, but there's a lot of us actually that are on that cusp of like, okay, we're moving ourselves into the next part. And then that made me just think like, gosh, I wonder what all the rule followers are. Maybe they're moving into the teenage part. They're all going to be like, no, we're not going to follow any rules. And there's just going to be anarchy like on the whole planet, you know? So it's an interesting idea, you know, like this whole like evolution of human consciousness from like the toddler baby child of following all the rules into the teenager of like, nah, into the adult, you know, into like this higher presence. So I don't know what that sparks for you, but it's it's a big
Well,
topic.
it sparks a lot because I've worked through these in the programs that I actually run. So there's really lovely synergies with what you've just said to work that's actually come out of Harvard.
Ooh.
Called the stages of adult development. So it actually is exactly what you're saying. And so Robert Keegan and Lisa Lasko-Leahy, they're both professors at Harvard, and they've studied human development from just a point of view of developing as a human being. And also there was some work done a long time ago by Professor Claire Graves and also Jane Lovinger. So they did their work in the 60s, whereas Robert Keegan's in the 90s and into now. So it's a little bit more up to date. And they've sort of narrowed it down to 5 stages that we progress through. And the first is definitely the young impulsive mind, where we're just, you know, we're just doing things because we need to have our needs met. So that would be a toddler. Like, I'm screaming, I'm impulsive, I need food. I'm screaming because I need attention, or whatever that might be. And then we start moving up further into, I'm trying to remember them all now. I teach this and you've caught me off guard. Um, so impulsive mind. Then we move up into the opportunistic mind, which is around about the teenager. So now we're looking for opportunities to, it's a little bit more self-centered. So it's all about me and discovering me and who I am. And then we move through other stages. And the final two stages, there's the conformist mind as well, in there as well. So the conformist mind is those people that are still at a level of mental complexity. So their ability to view the world is very much dictated by what's going on outside and what everyone else is doing. I need to conform to fit in. And I know that we've had a conversation around conformity, in the podcast we did together the other day. And conformity actually separates us instead of unifying us, which is a really beautiful thing for us to understand that conformity actually isn't the answer. And so those that are conforming are doing everything because I need to do this because my parents said, or the boss said, or the organization, or the community, or the culture I was born into has these rituals and these things that I'm doing, and I'm conforming to those. Then we move up into the creator level. I call this the self-author. And I think this is a really beautiful transition because now people are starting to bend the rules. They're starting to get a deeper sense of self. They're starting to really create their life in a way that is meaningful for them. And there's a lot of really good aspects for people in that self-authoring. And there's around about the studies are showing that approximately, I think it's around 20 to 30% of the adult population sort of get to that. But then they talk about the transformational mind, they call this, the transforming mind. This is what I call the ninja.
I think I'm a ninja.
And this is beautiful because, and only 1 to 2% of the population get here. Most of the population, about 50%, are in the conformist mind.
Yes,
As an
we
adult.
see it all over the place. It drives me
Yeah.
nuts.
And you can see there's a small amount that still remain. I think it's around 6% or more remain in the opportunistic teenager mindset as adults. I teach this in organizations, in corporate organizations, and I see, around 6% of people are still in this opportunistic mindset. And people go, "You sure it's only 6%? Like, we've got people in our team here who are doing it all for themselves and very much around me, and climbing the corporate ladder. No, it doesn't matter who they step on, and just, it's all about myself." It would be those, the selfie people. That would be the opportunistic mind. So it's really interesting to see that there are still adults that live in the mentality and the mental complexity of a teenager. We see it quite a lot. So then you move up, and this transformational mind or transforming mind is where we have the ability to be able to notice our thoughts in a moment, change those thoughts, but also always have a wider perspective and be open to new ideas. We still have goals. The self-authoring mind has goals that are a little bit more self-orientated, whereas a transforming mind would be more of a global goal, more of something that I want to help humanity through that. And the transforming mind just has this beautiful ability to take themselves out of life's dance floor and up onto the balcony and see everything that's going on instead of being caught in the drama of life. They can lift themselves out of it in the moment and actually see what's going on. So let's say you and I are having a disagreement or an argument, and I might be a transformative mind at that level of mental complexity. I can naturally bring myself out of it and look and go, "Oh, I see where Kerry's coming from now. I can see that she'll have different programming, different beliefs, different values, and I can see her point of view now. That's okay." We don't have to agree to disagree. We can just continue to have a conversation so I can better understand Kerry and understand where she's coming from. Maybe she has some gold in what she has to offer that I haven't been open to before. So this self-transforming mind, small amount of the adult population get there, but those that do are the ones that really make a huge difference in the lives of others. And they're not always those famous people that we know.
Yeah, because
everyday human beings.
Famous people require a lot of people to think they're awesome, which means a lot of people would be resonating with what they have to say, which is based on their own belief systems and where they're at in their lives. So, considering the majority of the planet is in that bottom third of the conforming and the rule following and the, all of that, they're not going to understand the transforming mind. The transforming mind is like, things, it's not fixed. It's not fixed in a position. It's not fixed with a structure or a system or an ideology. It's like, it's beyond all that. It's
Mm,
like, I
yeah,
witness those things going on, right? In the transforming mind, but I'm not invested in it.
yeah. I liken it to a chameleon. So this
Yeah.
transforming mind can sit in the space of, we could use religion here. They could sit in a Buddhist temple and fit right in and follow the practices, understand the practices, really get value from them. And they can walk out and go to a Muslim temple and do the same thing.
Hmm.
And then potentially they could go to a Baptist church, a highly charismatic one, and start singing and dancing and they just can fit in anywhere because they, their sense of self is not defined by the outside world. They they also understand that they can change their colors without changing who they are at the core, because they know that they are everything at the core. They know that they have every trait, every characteristic within them, and they can activate them at any time. And it's a beautiful gift because now they can fit in anywhere without pretending. So this is really interesting because a lot of people go, oh, but aren't they pretending to be something that's not really them? But if you think about it, if you pull back the layers and get to your deeper sense of self, you are everything. You are an expression of everything. It's just what you're choosing in this lifetime to dial up or dial down.
Yeah, I like to think of it, well, I call it shape shifting, but or like really advanced empathy.
Mm,
But what I think is interesting underneath all of that is that this realization I had that everything in the world that I would see, encounter in the world has a face inside me that also reflects that. So in a way, like I was having a conversation with you, the face within me that comes forward with you is slightly different than the face that would come forward with like my mentor that I interviewed earlier today. Like that's why I think I love these conversations so much, because I am the same. Like there's a constant me, but I'm really aware that the constant me and presence with you shows up slightly differently than the constant me and presence with my mentor or somebody else or my husband or and it's like it's being comfortable allowing that fluidity.
mm,
And I think the more that the layers, like actually the more the false mask gets pulled away, the more it's I've noticed that it's fluid like that and I'm okay with it. I'm not awkward. I don't feel awkward with it the way I used to. Because I
yeah, it's
notice that I
beautiful.
show up differently. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I show up the same with certain kinds of people and other people I don't. Just because I can feel there's just something that comes forward in me that's different through the chemistry of that interaction.
Yeah. And that is, I think, back to your point, a really good sign of high levels of empathy, of being able to really feel the energy and where that person's at and being able to meet them there. Um, I know this is something that's just a practical example of how a self-transforming mind may show up in the world. So I do a lot of talks at leadership summits and in corporate events and so forth. And the Georgia that loves to be at home sits in comfy pants and t-shirts and, singlet tops and bare feet. Now, if I was to walk up to a leadership event like that, get on the stage and do a keynote address, I'm not sure whether people would have a respect for me. Now, here's the thing. I'm not showing up I don't like wearing suits and so forth, but I do change my outside appearance so that the people feel comfortable. I'm actually not doing it to fit in. I'm not doing it to look good or look, professional. I'm actually doing it for empathy for the other person so they feel comfortable listening to me.
And so they can receive the message that's coming through
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a difference than somebody who could be doing it to conform and look in. This is where a self-transforming mind knows, they know the games that we play, and they don't play them to conform. They use them as a tool to be able to share their message or be able to bring greater good to the world. There's this really slight nuance about it.
Yeah, and it's not it's like it's the constant presence is there. Like the essence of you is there, and it's just the nuance of the appearance shifts accordingly.
Yeah.
Like because it's the appearance is not that is like a shallower level of depth of who you are, that appearance, like what you look like. I have noticed that my appearance changes depending on the broadcast and who I'm talking to, because I watch these things back to create teaser clips and things like that, and I'm always like, that is so interesting. I look like this right now. Like some other part of me came forward, right? And I watch it
Yeah.
back. I'm like, this is so interesting because now I'm
Yeah.
looking at myself in retrospect, like on these different broadcasts, like, look, I've just changed. I changed again. I don't look the same. I'm not consistent.
Chameleon.
Yeah,
Chameleon.
I
Putting into
switch.
your environment. Yeah.
So that used to make me really uncomfortable because I felt like I don't if you have this in your gene keys or in your makeup or your whatever, I don't know what you want to call it, but if you just have this, it's really confusing at first about who you are.
Mm. But if you know, if you've done work like the work that you take people through, and some of the work that I used to do with individuals, and I don't do it, I do it at a different level now. Um, if you really understand who you are as a spiritual being having a human experience, and you are an expression of divine, you can shape shift at any time. But if you know that within you, you have fun with it. It
Yeah, it's fun.
becomes it becomes a game. It's like dress ups. It's like, it's now becoming, you're doing it from a really different motivation and intention. So my example of going to these events and speaking, I'm doing this for the audience. I'm not doing it to fit in. I'm not doing it to conform. I'm doing it because I understand the human psyche, and people will make an impression of me within the first 30 seconds, and they're going to either listen to me and validate what I have to say or not, unfortunately, based on my appearance. So if I know that, and I believe I have a message that is going to help somebody in the audience, I'm going to do my darndest to make sure they listen.
Yeah, and there's a reason why your soul chooses to come up in this particular packaging for this particular lifetime. Like I realize that. Like I have other my inner affinity, my inner affinity is for Native American or indigenous philosophy and ways of being. Like that's just my inner affinity. That's how I feel the most comfortable and the best. And when I started remembering that, like remembering me and my ultimate affinity, like that's how I feel comfortable. It was awkward at first because I wasn't that for a long time, right? So then I started embracing it and it felt weird. Like it was like, oh, this is weird, but I really like it. But can I like it? Is that okay? Because look at me. I'm like got red hair, white skin. Is this okay for me? Like, am I all right doing this? And then after through this integration process, and the remembrance of another key life that I was integrating in this lifetime, I was like, oh, so I'm actually integrating this with the current being that I am now. And I actually, at some level, chose this packaging specifically to address a certain audience that would be comfortable with me looking exactly like this.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
I picked it. So then I had to go back and embrace all of this being and all of the experiences and decisions and things, like own this lifetime. Everything I've done up until now, I had to go back and go, okay, I'm not shunning that. I'm actually bringing it in. This is what I need in order to be effective in this lifetime with my purpose, what I chose to do. And on the inside, I know exactly who I am.
Yeah. Isn't that just a beautiful gift? And you're now feeling like there's that little bit of uncomfortableness to start with, I guess. And but then it just, it's like putting on after a while, a comfortable pair of slippers. Like it's me and it feels comfortable.
Yeah, and to know that I picked this. Like I picked to look exactly like this, and I picked my spunky personality. I picked the whole thing so that I could, because with the potential I saw for the good I could do was through this vessel.
Mm. I love that, the whole idea of us being the ones that chose this incarnation, the parents, and the DNA that we're going to step into, this human monkey suit that we're putting on. um, we chose this for a purpose, and I think the fun's finding out what that is, exploring life to find out eventually, why did I choose this suit, this version of Georgia? Why did I choose this? And I think as we, depending, I don't know when it happens for most people, but I know when I stepped into and discovered how much I just loved being of service to people, um, and helping them bring out their own unique expression of self, how good that felt. I realized, this is why I came to be here, and this is why I've had these experiences in my life to build this strength so that I can turn around. I've got to my version of heaven. I'm still in there creating and still moving, but I'm at a point now where I can turn around and put my hand out and start bringing other people in, um, to help create their version of heaven on earth.
Yeah, that's a beautiful space to be in that place of, because the evolution continues, but there are certain milestones that I've
Yeah.
noticed that, like, beyond this milestone, okay, now it's going to be more successful doing, like, there was a while that I knew I needed to be in service and I knew it was on a big scale. And I knew, like, okay, I need to prepare for this, oh, I got to get ready, okay, send me in, coach. I've been saying that for years, like, send me in. But I wasn't ready, and then as I
Mm.
get to each milestone of readiness, like preparation, I was like, oh, I needed that piece. Okay, I see why things were delayed or not moving as quickly as I thought they should, as my ideas of thinking about things. Oh, yes. Okay, that makes sense. And then it's only after you've integrated that you understand, like you get, like, oh, I needed that piece in order to serve the way I need to serve.
Yeah. And the pieces keep dropping. I know I've still got missing pieces. Hence continually going down different rabbit holes just to find the pieces of the puzzle to put them together. And yeah, I know that I am definitely not perfect, but I know that I also am confident that I've experienced enough of life to be able to help people start their own exploration for their pieces. Um, so I think that's a beautiful gift. There's so much more ahead of me. And I love what you said there around, coach, put me out in the field, and no, you're not ready yet. There's something yet. You just, but we don't know what that thing is, that skill, that idea, the experience. We have no idea what that is. And, I do a lot of what I call, and I encourage my students and my clients to do this. We do a lot of what we call blueprinting, where we start to express what we want from our life, and we write a blueprint for that. Um, and I'm a real firm believer that when we are really deeply in touch with ourselves, the blueprint that we came here to be is actually starts getting expressed. So we encourage people to write, their future goals, dreams, etc., which hopefully is starting to channel why they're here. So I've been doing that for many years for myself personally, and I'll write things out in a blueprint, and some things just do not happen, right? Because that could be my logical mind looking at the external world and going, oh, maybe I'll have that. It's not really my purpose, but that looks good. But there are things in this blueprint that start to manifest and start to become my reality really quickly. Because obviously I'm on purpose. I'm on the line. I'm on the path. And there are some things that just still, I still write them in my blueprint. They haven't happened yet, but there's this deep knowing that they're part of it. But I still need something. There's a piece of the puzzle missing. And 2020 was a really interesting year for me because I'd had written in my blueprint for quite a while that I was running my my own online programs. I was running a lot of programs face to face, and some were online, and sometimes I was helping facilitate other people's programs. And I'd had these programs that I'd been, running that I wanted to put online, and I put part of them was online, but it wasn't all put together. And it was really fascinating to see that all of a sudden this thing that I'd written for a number of years just sprang to life effortlessly in 2020. Created the modules, created the program, was really effortless, sold it out, ran 6 cohorts through it in the 1 year, without any real effort. There was, obviously I took action and did stuff, but it wasn't that hard grind hustle work. It was very natural, and it was actually really beautiful. And I loved 2020. It was one of my most creative years because it gave me the time to sit back and bring some of those things to life. So it's really interesting, I think, how we can have these goals, these dreams, and these wishes. And I think part of them, the thread through there, it will be something that we're here to do. And I think it will naturally unfold in the time that's perfect for us. And we need to sit back and surrender to that sometimes, and sometimes we don't. We try and push and force.
Yeah, the pushing and forcing, good luck with that. I mean, I've been trying to get the audiobook for the Second Wave book up and published through Audibles. And there was just delay, or like to send the files back and be like, it doesn't have the right spacing at the beginning and the end, and this whole thing. I was like, what the heck is going? I mean, I know that I want this book out there in Audibles. Like, I'm clear that that's happening, but I never asked the timing. I didn't ask if now's the time, right? So I just kept meeting block after block, and then having to like replace the files and do it over. And then I finally just messed the files up so bad, I had to finally send it to somebody. I hired somebody to fix the files. And I uploaded them again. I still haven't heard anything. I'm like, I don't know if this book is ever going to go, like,
Yeah.
what the heck? And so I finally stopped and asked. I said, okay, higher guidance. Which for me, I call White Eagle. I said, White Eagle, what the heck is going on? Do you want this book published in audio? Yes. Is it the right timing? No. Was I supposed to get it all started? Yes. And you're going to make sure it gets published on your timing? Yes. Okay, this is one of those moments of like, pay attention. Because like I can't tell you how much time I don't normally have that happen anymore, but boy, I spun out on that, just trying to force that
Yeah.
thing through. And I
Yeah.
think that's really the clue. It's like, it's not that it's not supposed to happen sometimes, is that it's not supposed to happen yet. So no matter how much you try to force that thing to happen, something's going to get in the way of it.
Hmm. There's a beautiful universal law, the law of gestation. And I love this because, I work with people who set themselves goals and they put timelines to them. They set these corporate
But they
smart
tell you
goals.
to do that, put the time on it. Otherwise you won't be motivated or something.
Yeah, it's nice to have a time, but also I think the deeper knowing around the universal law of gestation is that, we know that it takes a certain amount of time for a baby to gestate in the womb. How many weeks is it? It's around 9 months. And then we have the baby. We know 6 to 8 weeks, plant a carrot seed, you have a carrot. However, with these goals and dreams that we have, there's no science behind the gestation period. So we're guessing.
Mm-hmm.
We're guessing the times, unless we have a guide that we can channel and communicate to get some direct answers. Unless we've honed that skill, we're guessing. So therefore, we actually need to surrender to it. We need to surrender to the time it's taking for whatever it is we're doing, for the roots to establish, for it to get the nutrients it needs, for it to then have this little sprout coming out. Before, this oak tree or whatever your goal is, it may take 10 years. It might be like bamboo, all the work's being done underneath, and then, for quite a long period of time, and then within a week it's 5 meters tall. It could be, we just
Yeah.
don't know, and we've got to surrender to that. And what a lot of people I notice do is they use their energy in a way that doesn't serve them. So they use force, which is like they get this hammer and they're continually just, banging away at the goal, trying to
Like
make it
me with those
happen. And
dang audio files.
yeah, just I'm going to keep doing it. It's hard work,
So
hard work.
frustrated.
However, if they were to stand back and be energetically connected to that goal, or energetically connected to a higher self that actually can say, hang on a minute, yes, we can make that happen, but there's things that need to happen, not quite yet. So we turn to energy away from matter against matter and energy against matter. Well, now things will start to progress and it'll make more sense to us.
Yeah, and sometimes it's so the messages I've gotten about the divine, because of course I've asked lots of questions about this, Georgia, because I'm a
Good.
manifester by design and I'm super impatient. So it's like I like to get stuff done. I like to get it done. So one of the things I got a message around is that there's like it's not divine timing is not necessarily a matter of the like this by this date exactly. It's more like what do you need to be to in a state of beingness or in a state of having learned or acquired or know in order for the next piece to unfold, that the next piece to unfold that unfolds to the thing you say you want manifesting. It's like these things, it's like gates. You got to open and go through the gates. And
Mm,
as you open and go through those gates, it unlocks the next gate. And as the next gate unlocks and this new potential, and then finally through whatever gate you need to go through, then that thing can manifest because you've gone through the correct gates or pathway to unlock that potential.
yeah.
So, but we
I
don't
think
have like
that
a blueprint for that. So we just have to keep stepping.
yeah, and we guess, we experiment, we have little many failures, we get it wrong. But I think the key that you mentioned there is, it's who we're being, because
Mm.
who we're being in any given moment is this beautiful energetic signature. And if that signature is a match for the thing that we want, well, obviously it's going to magnetize to us in some way, isn't it? But if we're being something that's in opposition to that, impatient, or um, not quite the person yet who can be and deliver the thing that we want to deliver or experience the thing we want, if we're not aligned to that, well, how do we expect to experience it?
This shows up so much for people who are looking for their life partner. I had so many conversations with people about like, well, where is my life partner going to come and when, and like I can go down these dating sites, like there's tactics, right? Like I can get, my dating profile right and get my picture right and get the right message out there. And then that's kind of like the first set of tactics. And then you start to realize, no, it's not exactly about that. There's more to it. There's like, especially the key relationship, I feel like if it's a key relationship, not to say there's just one in a lifetime, but if there is a key relationship, that relationship, like I realized for me meeting my partner, Akeem, I needed to go through a series of shifts in myself to become the kind of person in embodied in
Mm,
fullness that he would be attracted to actually, because the woman I was maybe 9 years ago, he would have been like, you know, no thanks, like this just not aligned with me. And the person he was 9 years ago, he didn't know what he really wanted, right? So we weren't a match. We weren't a
mm,
match until we both became who we were meant to be and in a certain level of fullness. And then it sparked. Like when we met, it was like, we'd already been seeing visions of each other for about a year before we met. So it's like, oh, there you are. Okay, yay. And I believe it was agreement. I believe that we
yeah,
agreed to be together in this life, but there were certain things that had to be in place in order for us to have the right chemistry
yeah.
to do what we're
I
going to do.
totally, yeah, totally agree. And I know that I've had people that have come to me, coaching clients that we've been working on their career goals, but we end up working on their relationship goals.
Yeah, because it's
Um,
important. Yeah.
and well, I've had clients that have gone, I'm struggling to find the ideal partner. So we sit back and we think about, well, first of all, what are you seeking in a relationship? First of all, what's going to bring out your highest good? And in that case, who do you need to be for that to happen? Not who does the other person need to be? Who do you need to be? So what are the things you would be doing? What are who are you? How are you showing up in this relationship you want? Now be that person now before the person turns up, and see what happens.
Exactly.
Every
Exactly.
time every time they do that, within a short period of time, boom, they've met their ideal partner. And it's a beautiful thing to witness, actually.
Yeah, because you're getting exactly what you say you wanted. Now you gotta, like, learn to love it, you know? That's the next
Yeah.
part. Because what we think
Yeah.
we want and what we actually when we get into it, it's like, "Oh, that means I need to do regular work on myself, and I need to actually be transparent and vulnerable, and what does vulnerable mean?" And, you know, that opens another whole can of worms. I like to call it another
Absolutely.
classroom. Like, you just entered the next level, right? Like, relationships are super PhD classrooms.
Oh, I know, they're amazing, and then our greatest teachers, I know the, relationship I'm in now, and I say that because I've had a number of relationships, and I also know that, you know, depending on who we are and the life that we're living, some people have one partner for life, and I know I've had many, and each one of them served in a beautiful and amazing purpose. So, um, the relationship I'm in now, I've been in for 10 years, and it when we started this relationship together, my highest focus on myself was personal growth. And I wanted to be able to show up in the world and really understand relationships, and really wanted to understand, you know, some of the other aspects of life that I've never experienced, because I grew up in a very privileged, not privileged, well, it is privileged, white privilege, first of all, yes, but also middle class Australian, you know, no real suffering. Um, And this relationship has been my greatest teacher. My partner is my greatest muse. And there is a deep seated love. I've learned unconditional love like never before. And I absolutely got what I asked for 100%. It's a beautiful relationship. Um, it can be challenging, but for me, it's around how am I showing up in this relationship to be of service and to be of support, and owning my part in the relationship. How am I taking 100% responsibility for myself and what's happening in this relationship? And that's been challenging. There have been times when I've just wanted to go, get the hell out of here. um, but then there's also these times when I sit back and look at how I am such a better person because of this relationship, because of this human I'm sharing part of my life with at the moment, hopefully for a long time too.
Yeah, it's powerful, what happens in a partnership that's based in transformation or personal growth,
Mm,
because that's my partnership now as well. I have that kind of partnership. And when he met me, he met me at I was leading a fire walk, so he met me in my power. So this has been a completely different dynamic than my first my long-term relationship. So what's been really interesting is that we have a foundation that is based in the idea of transformation as a top priority for each
yeah,
person. And so the relationship serves the personal transformation. And it's a really vulnerable place to be in, to be completely committed to transformation and personal growth, and completely committed to the relationship and the vulnerability and the transparency, and be committed to the transformation for each individual as a top priority, because you don't know where it's going to go. Like, you're going to change, like you might change and become incompatible, and at that
mm,
point, if you're committed to each other, then you're committed to the relationship as a support of that, which means it might stop at
mm.
some point,
Yeah, I
right?
know. It could. It very well could. And look, one of my greatest lessons, we've been together for 10 years. I've been running my own business now for 8. Um, when I first started my business, I'd already done quite a lot of coaching in my previous role in corporate. So, you know, senior management, running large teams, understood the coaching process. But I think I was doing it more rescuing than coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So this relationship's been a beautiful gift for me to really notice where I was trying to rescue somebody and help them where they actually didn't have need the help. So this has been a beautiful mirror for me to really practice what I truly do believe, and that is that we all have within us the power to transform if we choose. We all have that potential. We all have what it takes to do that, but it's going to happen in everyone's own time, instead of me trying to force this beautiful, you know, bud that is my partner to bloom before it's ready, I end up pulling away the petals and I have a wilted flower. So instead of doing that, I learned through this process to allow them to find their path, because there are so many different ways to transform and to heal. I mean, you just got to look at the modalities you have, you look at the modalities that I use. There are so many of them, and they all will lead to healing. Absolutely. So sitting back and allowing and watching somebody else unfold is a beautiful thing, but also not wanting to force it in a time that isn't right for that person. And we can do that. That gift has helped me become a much better, stronger coach. Not that I'm coaching is my full-time thing, but when I do coach and mentor people, this relationship has guided me into stepping out of rescuing and helping to support and challenge people to find their own path, truth, journey, whatever that might be. And I think that's a much better way of approaching and a gift we give to the world when we're coming from a place of service.
Yeah, we're moving out of the age of the guru, right? And this idea that there's somebody that has all the answers. And we're moving into each person finding their own path on the inside, which
Mm.
for many people, this will be a huge discomfort to not
Yeah.
have the answers on the outside. So we're shifting into finding the answers on the inside. And I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see people open up to this new pathway. And I've been praying for structures for people that are more comfortable with rules, to have structures that they can rest into, so that
Yeah.
as they, venture into the unknown of their own inner psychology, there's like some structures to go, okay, it's fine. It's all, I'm here. It's going to be all right. Yeah,
I'm
everything's
supported.
wobbly and wonky, and I don't have any rules, and all the structures are falling apart, but I'm okay. I'm like, I got me.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, and I think to that point that if we look at how the universe operates through certain laws, which give us that structure. So therefore, I think innate with all of us is this need for some form of boundary structure, even in our transformation. So I think I don't know what it looks like, but I really think that you're onto something there, that there needs to be some form of structure or support or scaffolding to help somebody and support them on their way without rescuing them, letting them do it themselves.
Yeah, and I think, given that information, or that graphic I saw about the 50% being in the rule following category, I was like, oh boy, we need to support these people. Like, okay, make
Yeah.
it so, universe, like create a scaffold so that, because it looks like we're all going to transition, into this new space and out of the external structures. So that could be a lot of chaos. So let's create some structure, some new scaffolding to make that an easier transition for all these people to go into. I'm excited about it just because this is space I already live. So I'm already good with
You've been
this.
doing the work for years, so have
I,
I. So it's
I'm
sort of like
good.
we're excited.
But for
Yeah.
anybody out there that's listening and your world is falling apart and you're like, I'm really not okay with this. I don't like this. I understand, because I used to feel that way too. And but I've learned through trial and error and experience over many, many years that it's okay.
Yeah. And I think too, to those that could be listening and going, no, this is not okay. You and I've both been through a lot of different transformation, whatever that might be, and we haven't felt okay through that process. I think what I've learned, and hindsight's beautiful, what I've learned is a couple of things that have helped me. One is that nature has this beautiful way of giving us little subtle lessons if we care to look. So if we don't know quite how to look inside, look at the patterns in nature. And our indigenous cultures have taught us that for years. So don't just walk past a tree, sit there and just notice what the tree is doing. Notice how it could be a deciduous tree that's losing its leaves. Okay, so there is a time and a season for me to drop some of my beliefs. There is a time and a season for me to let go of things that don't that don't serve me anymore. Maybe you're walking past a tree that has great big wreaths of bark coming off it. It's doing this beautiful striptease in nature. It's being vulnerable. It's expressing and showing its new flesh. So is that a message for you? Is that a lesson for you to go, okay, potentially maybe I need to let go of something and I need to say something to a loved one or someone I care about to help me heal? So I think there's not just, books and gurus that we can turn to. We're living on this beautiful living, I don't even know what to call it, living sphere that has so much wisdom in it that we can turn to. And I think that was one of the things that really, really helped me progress, is just turning to nature. And then when I turn to nature, I'm actually turning inward as well at the same time.
Yes, beautiful. I very resonate with what you just said, of course, because I love the earth-based spirituality. I think is the most direct path to getting sane again is to go
Mm.
out in nature and feel and notice and be present to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the worlds we're living at the moment, we live in these concrete blocks most of the time, or brick blocks or timber buildings and structures. We walk around with rubber or even plastic between the soles of our feet and the earth. We're disconnected. And so if we're disconnected from this life force that supports us, where else are we disconnected in our life? Um, so I think there's a really, really beautiful way. If you are struggling right now, one of the things you can do for yourself is to go and just sit in nature somewhere. Find a park. If you can't get into big nature, just find somewhere. And regardless of the weather, if it's snowing, get outside. We've got summer here at the moment. It's beautiful, walking around bare feet everywhere and just standing in the earth, and just it's such a beautiful way to reconnect with yourself.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Yeah, and I think as you reconnect to Mother Earth, then basically you start to feel the heartbeat of Mother Earth and remember your own heartbeat, and things start to make sense again. And the upside down world turns right side up, and you find yourself in a whole new perception. That's why I love that your podcast is Ellis in Wonderland, and I know that it's a play on words, but it's also because you love those rabbit holes, and as you go down those rabbit holes you find something more true than what you previously thought, which is what that book is all about. It's
Mm.
really changing your perspectives and seeing things from new eyes.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things, is if we can be more open to what's going on around us, it actually helps us heal. And one of the beautiful things about Alice in Wonderland and all of these rabbit holes, if anyone has ever been and seen a rabbit hole, there are dead ends in rabbit holes. There are some rabbit holes that go forever and then they pop up again. And the rabbit warrens are these mazes and labyrinths under the earth. So if you go down a rabbit hole and you feel something doesn't feel right to you, it's not resonating, it's probably a dead end. Just go back again and find another place to go. We sometimes just get fixated on someone's given us a book or a recommendation and it's not working for us. It might be just a dead end. Turn around and go somewhere else.
And it wasn't a waste of time, because something in that particular rabbit hole, even though it felt like a dead end, it has a spark or a seed of something that will make sense later, as you
Oh,
continue the
absolutely.
journey. I always find nothing's ever wasted.
Never. And funny you say that. When I was working in corporate, I had a role that I despised. I really didn't like it. I didn't like my boss, didn't like the work I was doing. I thought, when I got the promotion, it was sold to me a little bit different to what the actual task was. And I'll share with you, the tasks was I had to create the development and training programs for a particular part of this organization. So there was 800 staff globally that I had to work out their curriculum and what they needed to be trained in and all these sort of things. And I really despised it and hated it. I had to work with outside vendors, find the right people to come in and deliver the training. Now, if you fast forward to the work I'm doing now, that role, everything I learnt in that role is actually pivotal in the work I do now. I'm now on the other side and I need to approach organizations. So I need to be the vendor that goes to someone that used to have my role. I can speak their language. I used to do that.
It's perfect.
Yeah, and at the time, I really resented that aspect of my role. And now I look back and go, oh my goodness, that was, for some
It's
reason, I was
exactly
meant to do
perfect. I
that
needed
role. It
that.
was exactly perfect. I get it, right? So, yeah, you're right. There's always little trickles of gold and little pebbles of insight along the way that sometimes we don't know why. So just embrace it and enjoy it.
Yeah, embrace it, enjoy it, be in the moment with it, know that it has a purpose, and put it in your knapsack, and at some point it will sprout and it will get the
Mm.
roots and you'll go, wow, check that out. I needed that.
Yeah, absolutely. Your brain will store it somewhere and then you'll have that moment of epiphany and you'll go, oh, I know how to do this. Oh, that's right. That happened 10 years ago.
Yeah, nothing's ever wasted. It's all part of this master plan and all the even the little innocuous little details that you think can't possibly mean anything, then you find out one day it did. So
Mm,
yeah, take the journey. This is part of it. It's part of it. It's not all big aha mystical moments. There's things that like seem like drudgery that actually end up being quite useful.
mm.
So you do a lot of corporate work. How do you normally work with people in your line of work?
So yeah, I do a mixture. So I do corporate work, which is more, I'd say organizational or businesses. So working with businesses and bringing transformational information and work back to the workplace, but it's all deeply evidence-based. So when I first started doing this work back into corporate, I was coming in there with the intuitive and the deeper knowing that this is what the world needs and this is how we can transform. However, corporate space is very much analytical and wants the evidence. So I then spent a lot of time finding the evidence that was actually substantiate the work that I did. So all the work that you talk about, Kerry, and all the transformation, there is always that you'll find evidence and science to back it up. Like you're talking about the levels of development, and I go, yeah, Harvard's been studying that. Here it is. So in the past, when I talk about, people moving through levels of spiritual development, corporate space, probably not what we want to hear here right now. A little bit different now. So therefore, we just change the language and we don't lose the essence of it, but we still give them the same information and see how they can start to transform up those levels of what we call adult development, which is becoming in tune with your spiritual self.
Oh, I love
So,
that. I love it's evidence-based and it uses language to encourage everybody to be an adult. And of course, nobody wants to be told that they're not being an adult who should be an adult. So it kind of encourages the transformation, doesn't it?
but the beautiful thing is when you get to that self-transforming mind at the top, the person at the top, they play and they're very childlike.
Oh, yeah.
They love novelty, they love exploration, they love adventure. So it's really interesting how we're going, here's the levels of adult development, but when you get to the top,
You're like
you
a
need to be a
child
child.
again.
You've got to be a child again. So yeah, I do programs for organizations. Generally they're bespoke and tailored. Very rarely is there anything off the shelf. So I will sit with a business or a team and get an understanding of what their main challenges are, and then also take what they've already done in their organization and weave that through what we're presenting so that it's not like, oh, you're just running another program again. It's like, no, how can we maintain what you've done and make them see that this is actually an entire journey? So where we can, we use the language of the organization that they already have established. Yeah, so that's part of what I do, but I also run programs for the general public. And so just an individual can jump on a program that I might be running. I do individual coaching, small amount of people each year, only for time wise and energy wise. I need to honor myself. And yeah, so that's the work that I do, and it's all in that transformational space. So helping people, first of all, understand the narratives and the bullshit rules that we're bought into, and how that they continue to influence what you're getting in your life, the results that you're experiencing in your life, how to overcome the protective mechanisms that want us to stay there. So there's a lot of work being done around these inner mechanisms within us that lead to self-sabotage, that lead to, I was starting to change, but then I go back to the old way again. So again, Robert Kegan's work, it's called Immunity to Change, also tapped on with some work that was done by Dr. Maxwell Maltz back in I think it was the 1950s. He did a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. So we start to look at the inner mechanism within us that actually will thwart any change that we're trying to make. So we bring that into the mix as well, because it's all nice telling people how to transform, but they don't know there's part of them's going to actually reject the transformation. So how do we move through that? So that's in a nutshell how we sort of progress. And there's a lot of different things depending on the organizational needs. We dive into some of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's work around flow. So we do some work around that, which is peak performance and human potential. Flow is a state where we're creating what I like to call holy moments in our life, and this is really tapping into the information layer. But I don't say that in a corporate environment.
Yeah, you can't talk about that. Yeah, if they understand flow state, they've heard that word. So
yeah. So we talk about, we help people, move into those states as well, show them what the triggers are and how to make that happen for them. So I know we chatted when you were doing the interview on my podcast around how you have certain things that you do. You might meditate to get into a state where you can channel and communicate with, it's White Eagle, correct? That's a flow state.
Yeah, I get in flow. I have different languaging to talk about that, but essentially it's flow state. Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the science and everything that's in what they say happens in flow, that's exactly what you're doing. So we can bring the spiritual side of what you're doing, and we can put a lens over it so that the people that have the belief systems or the cultural beliefs or the bullshit rules that this is all woo-woo, we go, well, it's actually not, and here's the evidence. So it's a real delight. I've loved it. I've loved going down all these rabbit holes because it's validated everything that I intuitively was living and uncovering on my own personal journey.
Awesome. Well, we need bridges like that, Georgia. So thank you for diving down those rabbit holes and finding the evidence and sharing it out and being that bridge, because that's a lot of reading. That's a lot of reading.
It's a lot of experimenting as well, because I very much have set a mantra for myself that I would never teach or preach anything that I hadn't lived myself. So for me to be able to share something in any space, public or corporate or organizational, I have to have a personal story to go with it. And if I don't teach it.
I love that you have the personal story and the evidence. I think that's like the magic combination. And, still people can reject it because we're all living from different lenses. So that's okay. You don't have to take it. I always tell people, run the experiment. The most important thing is to run the experiment and see what happens, and then don't be so tied to the evidence. We can find evidence of everything, which is like just such another whole conversation about our reticular activating system and how I can just find the truth in whatever we want to believe. So
absolutely. Another rabbit hole.
There's that. That's another rabbit hole. Let's save that rabbit hole for another time.
And here's the thing, I think it's probably a nice one to almost finish on, is that this is actually a Bible teaching, seek and you shall find.
There you go.
Ancient wisdom.
You sure will find it too. So, be careful.
Brain will be on your side. Your brain will filter out everything you don't need, and it'll point you straight to what you do need. But you just got to decide what you're experimenting with.
It's all the same wisdom expressed in different ways. And so I love that. I love that you brought that in. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being that bridge. We need bridges like this right now. And so appreciate you doing the work. And I'll send people to your website. Is that a good place to start, is to go to your website?
Yeah, website, or even if they want to jump on Instagram, that's probably a good place. Blue Chip Minds on Instagram. But yeah, website's got all the information and programs if anyone's interested.
And I'll add a link to my interview on on her podcast, Ellis in Wonderland, and you guys can check out her podcast too from there. You better dive down into some more rabbit holes with Ellis and with Georgia. I was calling you by your last name. So
That's okay.
thank you, Georgia. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you, everybody out there. So, I'm going to ask you, that's that point in the show where I say, please help us spread this word, spread the message, spread the word. Ellis, Georgia has a really interesting bridge. She's got a really interesting combination of expertise and experience and the research and all of this that you're offering us, Georgia. So this is a really good one to share with those skeptics, those skeptics in your audience that go, I don't know about this Carrie Hummingbird. This is so woo-woo. Because this broadcast actually has some evidence-based things that scientific people actually might really like. So if those scientists in your life or the skeptics in your life, this might be the one to share with them, just saying. So I encourage you to do that. And then, let it go and see what happens. Don't have an expectation or the outcome. And give it some 5-star reviews for us so that more people find out about this really cool knowledge and experiential, reality here. And that's all I have to say to you guys. So please do that. Oh, here come your kisses. I forgot where. Here comes the kisses. I always give kisses at the end. Would you like to help me give kisses, Georgia?
Oh, absolutely. Just tell me what I've got to do.
We're just going to give kisses. So here, get ready. Here come your kisses, people. Mm. Thanks for being on the show, and thanks for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now.